When I was in high school, my mother wanted me to appreciate the significance of our new place of residence, the Commonwealth of Virginia. Our Commonwealth was home to some of the most important figures of early America. One of them was Thomas Jefferson, drafter of the Declaration of Independence and a founding father who helped shape the country. Jefferson was proud of Virginia as well as the new republic for which he established, the United States of America. In order to instill a similar pride, my mother took me on an educational trip to see Jefferson's home, where many of his scientific experiments and inventions are on display. Normally, my mother had to drag me kicking and screaming on these educational trips, but Jefferson's home was different. Not only was it beautiful enough to impress me as a teenager, but the ideas and scientific notions on display caught my imagination. For one thing, Jefferson was obsessed with fossils, and I felt a kindred spirit. Most curious to me was Jefferson's preoccupation with an extinct elephant now known as the mastodon, but in his day it was still mysterious and only known by a few skeletons found in farmers' fields and assembled often wrongly. Nobody knew if these fossil bones belonged to an American mammoth, similar to the ones found in Europe at the time, or if it was something entirely new. It did not appear to be the same thing as a mammoth. He called this creature the Great American Incognitum due to its unknowable nature. Every American school kid learns about Jefferson's Louisiana Purchase, as well as his commissioning of the Lewis and Clark expedition to explore this newly acquired territory. Less known, however, is Jefferson's obsession with the incognitum and his motivation to find one in the wilds of the American West. The idea of extinction was not settled in the early 19th century, so for all anybody knew, those giant prehistoric creatures were still alive. It is quite possible that Jefferson commissioned the Lewis and Clark expedition for the express purpose of finding these animals roaming the American West. But it wasn't just Jefferson's scientific curiosity that drove his desire to find these animals. He needed to respond to criticism abroad. A common idea among European aristocrats at the time was the vulnerability of the new American democracy and its inevitable decline. Europeans were unaccustomed to the idea of a country without a strong monarchy to hold it together. Thus, they were waiting for America to fail. In addition, the new American country and its people were considered unsophisticated and even degenerate. In other words, America bashing was a popular topic of conversation at the time. Enter a French aristocrat, Georges Louis Leclerc, Comte de Buffon. Buffon was a leading naturalist in the early 19th century, and he was currently working on a massive volume of books about animals and their origins. One of his central ideas, a thesis, was that the animals of America were inferior to the ones of the Old World. There were no elephants, rhinos, or giraffes in America, and therefore, according to his logic, the American animals were second rate. In addition, bears, wolves, and deer in America were inferior to their European counterparts. They were smaller and weaker and generally less impressive, according to Buffon. In keeping with the idea of American inferiority and degeneracy, Buffon also thought the people of America were less vigorous and thus unable to sustain the new democratic society that set it apart from Europe. Buffon's writing on the matter were popular in Europe, and this really irritated Jefferson. Who do these Europeans think they are, claiming that the new republic would not survive? Also, what is the connection between strong animals and the way people govern themselves? So Jefferson set out to prove Buffon wrong. He found examples of American animals that were impressive, such as a preserved American moose that he had sent to Buffon's home in France. If he could only find a living incognitum, he could prove once and for all that the American environment was vigorous and formidable. Perhaps there were other animals out there that could represent America's robust nature. Jefferson acquired a huge claw from an extinct ground sloth, mistakenly believing that it was from the great American lion or tiger. Though he didn't see to live the eventual identity of this ground sloth, to this day the scientific name of this animal bears his name, Jeffersoni. In the end, no Incognitum was found alive, as we know that mastodons, as well as mammoths, became extinct, along with numerous other megafauna at the end of the Ice Age over 11,000 years ago. Even as a teenager, I felt the pride of place with my Virginia, home of the drafters of the two most important documents ever written, the Declaration of Independence, written by Jefferson, and the Constitution, written by another Virginian, James Madison. Even the Bill of Rights was based on a document penned by yet another Virginian, George Mason, the namesake of my undergraduate alma mater, by the way. These innovative ideas, inspired by European Enlightenment philosophers, in turn inspired a wave of independent movements which ultimately ended colonialism the world over. In the coming years, America became more confident of its unique position in the world, and the idea of American exceptionalism took the form of manifest destiny and set it on the course of an unabashed imperialism that eventually overcame even the British Empire in scope and influence.